Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Black Leather Couch. Today's guest is Noah Scalin. He's an artist, author, musician, and public speaker from Richmond, Virginia. Had a chance to meet Noah a couple years ago, and since then I've worked on a couple projects with him. He seemed really interesting when I met him, first time I met him, so I figured I'd try and get him on the couch and learn a little bit more about him, and I did, so here we go. Okay, so how did it all start for you? Where were you born? Where were you?
Wow, you're going back to the beginning.
The beginning. Yes, we do we do a vertical
conceived,
leap. So.
I
don't need to know where you were conceived.
I thought that's what the show was about.
Yes, it's one of those sex shows.
Yeah, I actually was born here in Richmond, Virginia, at MCV, no less. So I always say I'm a medical experiment because I was born in the medical college, so they were just practicing on me.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I grew up here in Richmond. Born and raised.
Born and raised?
Yeah.
What part of the city? Were you in the city? Or?
Yeah, I was in the Fan, and so I was born in the early 70s, so it was like 70s and 80s in the Fan, when it was like, if you don't know the Fan, it's like, the Fan was a super dangerous area back then. Like it's like real, rich, and it's really beautiful and really nice, and like,
And then you go to the next street and it's not.
And it's not. But when my parents moved there in the late 60s from New York, like people were like, don't buy a house in the Fan.
Oh, wow.
Like they were like, stay out of that area. And it was totally fine, but it was definitely like, it's city living. So it was rough, and it was like within a block, it was dangerous. So
yeah. That's one of those, if you don't actually know, you kind of make it your own when you get there.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, like, they were coming from New York,
before the city became a real art kind of.
Yeah, it was at the beginning of that.
Before it was college-y, because I think that helped transition the city quite a bit.
Well, my folks moved actually to Richmond so that my dad could teach at VCU, which had just become VCU. Literally, it just transitioned from being RPI to VCU.
I didn't even know it was something before
VCU.
So,
and then what it was is like, he was part of this, like, late 60s art crowd that really sort of came and coalesced around the school at that time. So, a lot of what we get now in Richmond that's art related is coming out of that history of sort of that crowd. A lot of those people were really...
So your dad was one of the founding fathers then?
Yeah, in a way. Well, so my family, real arts, involved in the arts here in Richmond, from them on. And so it's Richmond's one of those cities, like if you don't know Richmond, it's like everybody knows everybody. And so I always say, if I don't know somebody, my parents probably know them. Yeah. There's some connection. And so it's
your dad's published too, right? He's an author too or something? He's
an artist as well.
Artist.
So he's had, dozens of exhibitions. He taught at VCU for 36 years. So long connection. I mean, that's where I grew up, was basically at the university.
Yeah. And did you end up teaching there at all too? Or?
Actually, I've been teaching there since 2001. I've taught like computer classes for designers, and now I teach a class called Design Rebels, which is an ethics and design class. So I've been doing that on and off over the last 10 years.
Yeah. Oh,
plus now.
I did not know that either.
Yeah.
See, that's what a lot of this is too. Is not only
learning new things.
Everybody get to know you, but I get to know you too.
Yeah.
Because we've worked together on a few things, but nothing.
We've been sort of working on a specific sort of swath of the stuff.
Too terribly in depth, but one of the reasons I asked you for this too is because I know there's so much more that you do that I don't know about, which is why I wanted to get you on the couch.
Yeah. Well, so if it's not a Richmond-centric audience, all this talk is going to be a little like, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
But
that's the thing, is it's going to be a mix of people from all over. The more people, a lot of the first episodes will focus around people from Richmond.
That's your area of connection. Richmond's a great city. I mean,
there's
tons of really cool things happening here.
I mean, we're one of the top 10 cities in the country now, right?
Depending on
which list you're looking at.
But no, I mean, it's in terms of like tourism, like it's really grown a lot. We've got all this cool bike stuff that's been going on, and we got this big bike races next year, and so there's a lot of stuff that's drawing people in to check out this city that we already know is cool.
And then meanwhile, all the internal politics are breaking it apart.
Oh my god! Yeah, I was just reading more about that online today. It's just like, it's never ending.
Yeah. Parents still together? Good childhood, that whole thing, or?
Wow, can you imagine asking that question? Someone's just like, no! Like,
I ask the hard-hitting questions,
no, my folks still together. Yeah, I was a rarity even in when I was a kid. I remember being like, I feel bad my parents aren't divorced, because all my other friends had like...
I have no way to relate.
Like, all my friends had multiple, sets of parents, so they got like multiple sets of presents for their birthday. It was really awesome for them, and I was like, man, why do my parents have to be together and be healthy and happy?
Poking and prodding.
Yeah.
Hey, Dad said something mean.
Yeah. Come on, guys. Yeah, so totally, yeah, it was like an awesome.
That's what's sad is that is the rarity.
Oh, absolutely, anymore. Yeah, it totally is. So, they're great role models. I'm still really close to them, see them all the time.
Well, you seem like you're well put together anyway, so
I think
they did a good job.
The Frankenstein, sewing worked. It stuck.
Yeah. What does your mom do? Did she?
She's an artist as well. She also taught at VCU for a while, and then she went off into social work and ended up running an adoption agency for many years. So she's done a ton of stuff. I mean, she worked in theater, and she's back and doing art now. Both of my parents are retired, but they teach occasionally now still, and then they also both just make art and do a lot of cool stuff. Yeah.
So if you didn't become an artist, you'd have been shunned.
Yeah, well, it's funny because both my sister and I were like, we're not going to become artists. We're going to study other stuff in school because, as much as we love art, we saw that our parents had to do something else for a living. I mean, you're going to study art, you're going to be a teacher, you're going to be something else. The working, living artist is a pretty rare thing without having to do something else. And so both my sister and I were like, we're going to do something else. So she ended up just sort of doing general studies and switched to photography. I was doing theater design, thinking that was practical, which is sort of practical. At least it was a job title that wasn't just like painter. Yeah. And so, and then as I got out of school, I decided to be a graphic designer. And so it's funny because my dad was teaching graphic design at VCU. So
I would say early graphic design.
Totally no computers, hand stuff. So, but it's funny because my sister and I both ended up in the arts. We couldn't avoid it.
Couldn't get away.
Yeah, so we're like the opposite of people who are like, don't go into the arts, study something important. My parents were like, I mean, whatever you want, guys. And then we're still like, I guess we're doing art, So.
Well, influences are influences. No matter how you cut it. So, let's see. When did you get? Well, I guess the question I was going to ask kind of seems redundant now because it was like, when did you decide to get into art?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that pretty much answered itself from birth.
Right, there's no choice. No, so here's the story I tell people because they ask me about like that experience of growing up with artists, and what would happen is like in elementary school, kids would come over to play, and I'd be like, hey, why don't you come upstairs and we'll play in the studio? And they'd say, what's a studio? And I'd be like, that's the room where you make art. Duh. It's like the living room. You got a living room, you got a bedroom, a bathroom, and a studio. And they were just like, no, don't know what that is. So like that's the thing. It was literally like there was always a room to make art in my house growing up.
That's cool. Yeah. Instead of a toy room, it was an
art room. So I was playing with like toxic markers and random paper, just like whatever from day one.
Yeah. So as you got into it, and I'm assuming you did well in art in high school and stuff like that. When you went to college, did you hit like a wall where you're like, I don't want to do what they're doing, I want to do something else, or was it conscious? I guess is the
it was like making art was actually so normal that I didn't even think about like going to school to study art. Like it didn't even seem like a thing I would do.
Oh yeah.
And so when I went to school, I was like, okay, what's a practical thing I can study in school to get a job from? And at that point, in high school, I'd been volunteering at the local theater companies. And so I was like, well, I like theater. I could work in theater doing, sets and costumes and all that, sort of use my creative skills in something that seemed more like a job. And so I studied theater design in school. But it's funny because there would still be art classes, and I was like super comfortable. And everybody else in the classes, because they were really coming from more theater backgrounds, were like, oh, drawing nudes, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
And they were all like really uncomfortable, and I was just like, perfect, this is my thing. And they would all get mad at me because they were like, why are you doing so good at the art? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm having fun. I love making art. This is what I do. And so, yeah, it was interesting because right as I was getting to the end of college, I was like, I like the creative piece and theater is nice, but I really want to do more of the visual art stuff. And so that's when I shifted into graphic design rather than just the theater design, which I liked, but the budgets are crazy low and the work is super hard.
Well, it teaches you to work.
Oh yeah, it was
what you got.
Believe me, everything I learned in college was practical. Like to this day, I use the skills I learned in theater school. I always recommend people go to theater school if you want to learn. Look, electrics from doing lights, construction from doing set building, sewing from making costumes, fine art. I mean, it's a whole gamut of super useful skills.
And you got to do it on a shoestring
and on no money, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I use them all the time. I'm glad I studied that, but it was like as a job, I was like, wow, like every time I'd make something, it would be like out of cardboard, and it would just be like crazy trying to make it look good, and it would last just 2 weeks on a stage, and I just got to the point where it's like I know with the graphic design and using the computer at that point that I could make stuff that looked good the way I wanted it to look. I'd have more control over it. I think that was sort of my sort of goal then with doing graphic design was like having a level of control that allowed me to make art for pay that
Yeah.
Specifically.
Which is always nice.
Yeah, well, that was the thing, is I really saw graphic design as a way to continue being an artist, but making a living, which I was always very practical about. Like, how am I going to do a job?
How does this become money?
Yeah, and I never wanted to just be like, let me do art and do it just whatever job. I always was like, I have to do art in some form as a job. I have to do that all the time, but I know I've got to make a living.
That's funny because for me, it's the other way around. Like, I want to be creative all the time.
Yeah.
But I've always been so afraid to turn it into something where it's how I would make a living, because I go through bursts where there's 2 months where I can't think of anything to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like if I have to be creative all the time in order to make money, I'm screwed, because I go through dry spells.
Yeah.
And I would imagine the theater background and stuff for you, that would probably be one of the reasons why you started doing, like, I don't want to say found art, but it's kind of I've always viewed the Scalin stuff, because I know you're involved in that. I don't know exactly how, but I know you're involved in it.
I will tell you all about it.
But I always saw that as, like, and that from your explanation there makes it make more sense too, that you're doing things on a shoestring budget, and if you can find something and manipulate it a little bit to make a piece of art.
Oh, it's all make it work.
Yeah,
it's all.
It sounds a lot like the guys that do special effects stuff.
Oh, sure.
For movies and stuff too.
It's funny you say that, because that was actually, when I was a kid, I really wanted to be a special effects artist.
Yeah.
Because it was pre-computers, and what I saw was guys
Everything was practical.
building models,
Yeah.
making puppets, blowing things up for real. Star Wars, was it, man. I saw that when I was 5 years old and was like, I'm in. That's what I want to do, because they showed specials on TV, and they'd show them building the Millennium Falcon out of random model parts from other models, and I did that as a kid. I was like, okay, I'll do that, and so I was super excited. And then of course, as I was getting older, I was like, first of all, there's no film industry here then. There's more now, and computers were starting to come into it, and it was just like, that's where theater kind of worked out, because it was like the hand version of the film
practical
stuff.
there.
You need practical, you can't just fake it there with computers there. It has to exist.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I mean, to this day, that was like the thing that really made me want to do this kind of stuff, was watching Star Wars and seeing how people made stuff by hand behind the scenes. And I always credit that as something that led to a lot of the choices I made down the line.
And for you, coming from an art background, that fueled the fire. For somebody like me, I'm watching it going, that is awesome. I have no idea how to get into that at all.
It's just a mystery to me.
You go down the hallway to the art room and you can make things. We were poor, so I was one of those kids that I made models out of toothpicks and model
But that's
glue.
awesome. That's super
Until
cool,
one impaled me in the foot, and then
Your brother's like, we're taking these away from you.
You can't even have toothpicks.
No more toothpicks. It's only cotton balls for you from now on.
So I made a lot of cloud models, so that was good.
It's another cloud, Mom. Thanks.
It's a cumulonimbus. So that bridges to the Scalin stuff. How did that get started? And what is your level of involvement?
So I created Scalin.
You created
it. Yeah.
it,
So what happened was, we're sort of jumping forward a bit here, but what happened was, I had a career as a graphic designer. This is the job I wanted. I got out of school and I started doing it.
Was it with a business or?
No. What it is, I started doing freelance. I had the normal right out of college, retail job, and then, so to backtrack a little, when I was in college, you had to get an internship as part of one of your years. And so rather than doing the junior year, I decided to do it my senior year. I don't know why they didn't already structure it that way, because I was like, if I do it then
you can transition
right
into the
job.
working.
Yeah. So I was a big fan. So from being a movie fan, I was also a big fan of B movies, and in the 80s when you'd go to the video store, you would get whatever was available, which was very limited, but there was weird stuff.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And so what I would watch, my sister and I would just go to the weird section, and we'd watch all these crazy movies, and a lot of them were made by Troma. And so, Toxic Avenger, Class of Nukem High. So I was like, this is super cool. So when I was in college, one of my teachers was advising me about what I should do for internships, and I was telling what my interests were. And believe me, I was who I am now then. I mean, my resume that I made to show what I was into, had a little dude with a knife in his back, and it was all, it's very...
Yeah, I was going to say, well, that makes sense. An artist's resume is not just, I studied here.
Right, yeah. But it's funny, because the theater resumes were kind of plain, and I was already mine was on neon green paper with a little dead dude on it, and it's just I'm already like this. So my teacher, who was awesome, was like, Troma is actually based in New York, which is rare for a film company to not be in California.
LA, yeah.
So, LA, Hollywood. So I was like, really? And he's like, I'm sure they'd be interested in internships. And of course, I'm like naive, like, you think they might take me? Not knowing that it's like, oh, free labor. Of course they would. So went over to Troma, and they were like, yeah, sure, you can intern here. So I worked for them in my senior year of college and actually ended up going to the Cannes Film Festival with them when I graduated. So I actually missed my own graduation to go to the Cannes Film Festival. I know, bummer. And so my parents, like, that was my graduation gift was to like go to France to go to the Cannes Film Festival and work. I was dressed up in
work with quotation marks.
Yeah, it was So basically, like, for an hour out of the day, I would go and like hand out flyers dressed up as Tromi, the nuclear rodent, which is a character from Class of Nuke 'Em High Part 2, I believe, and Part 3. And so I would wear this like crazy costume that wasn't meant to be worn outside of the movie, so it was really old at this point. And like the latex was like off gassing, and I'd be like sick after like walking around for an hour in it. But like literally hand out flyers for an hour dressed as a radioactive squirrel, and then get to like do whatever I want and like watch movies, go to parties and stuff. It was great.
Wow.
So
that sounds way better than walking across the stage.
I was
thank you.
Like they mailed me my diploma. It was fine. Yeah. So I had this awesome time, and so basically when I graduated school, I came back here to Richmond and was working, and then my old boss at Troma called me and was like, "Do you want a full-time job?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay," as his assistant. And so came up. He was the marketing director, so I was the assistant to the marketing director. 2 weeks after I started, he quit. I didn't realize what he had done was he had hired me because he said, well, you were, of all the interns I'd had, I was the one who thought most likely could do his job, which was very complimentary, but I was like 21, 22. Yikes. And like, he's like, you're now the marketing director of a film company. This is a film company I was watching videos of being like, I love Troma. And all of a sudden I'm like, I run the marketing department at Troma now, and I don't know what I'm doing.
Holy crap.
Yeah, so...
Is that what you ended up doing, though?
Yeah, I ran the marketing department.
Wow.
Well, what I did was I was like, well, I don't really want to do this. So what I did was I got an assistant who I gave all the marketing work to, and I took all the design work, and I changed my title to art director. Oh. But at that time there, I redesigned all their branding. I worked on Romeo and Juliet, which was the film they were making at that time. It was like the late 90s. Great experience. It's the boot camp of the film world. I got so much cool experience and did so much interesting stuff. And then that allowed me to sort of develop my resume as a graphic artist. Quit that job, ended up getting a job at another company called Averex. It was a clothing company, still around. Yeah. Doing design work that would go on fashion stuff. And met a bunch of really cool people in fashion.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think I remember at one point you posted something online about them still using some of your designs.
Oh, yeah. I see. It's funny because every now and then this stuff pops up where I'm like, I did that years.
Some kid walking around with a shirt with your thing on it.
It's pretty fun to see that. So that was all my sort of design training outside of school, was like learning the trade of graphic design. Yeah. And I did that for 6 years, and then I started.
So you went to Averex after
that. So I did Troma, then I went to Averex.
How long were you there?
That was 4 years there. So it was 2 years at Troma, basically, a little under 2 years. 4 years at Averex. So 6 years working full-time for other people, and then I left and started my own business. I've been freelancing the whole time, knowing that that's what I wanted to do. Yeah. And sort of to your point, the problem with being creative for other people, and not just doing a job.
You're confined.
You're extremely confined, and, for like in-house design, you're doing the same thing over and over. Like with fashion, it's like every season you're trying to find a new way to do the same thing, and you're just like, I don't have new ideas about this thing. I've done it 10 times already. What's another version of this thing? So there is that trade-off of like giving away this thing that you love, this passion, and then having other people being like, I don't like that, or change that, or whatever.
That's also been the thing that like I did web design for a brief stint, because I basically started artistically when computers were becoming the only way to do it. Yeah. And I quickly realized that was just not going to be for me. Like, I'd spend hours designing something. They go, I want this, and I want it to do like this, and I would come up with what I thought they were talking about, hand it over, and they'd be like, this, I don't like this at all. Not one piece of this do I. It's like, I felt like I wasted so much energy.
Yeah, it just kills you. It's just like, it's like being stabbed. I mean, you're just sort of like, what? Okay, why am I doing this? And so that's the trade-off. Like, I love being able to be creative all the time, but you can lose your passion in it if that's just like all you're getting is the negative. And if you just do some whatever job, and then you've got all this energy built up that you can expend on your personal projects. But anyway, I'm telling you all of that just to say that, like,
get to where we were. Yeah, which is fine. Jumping around is not a big deal.
Well, so I started my own company, and basically I'd been doing freelance. In 2001, I quit my job and was like, okay, this is it. I'm going to do my own company from now on. And I did. It was great. But the problem I had is that I had set the goal at running my own business, and I never set another goal. So I wasn't like, I'm going to make this much this year, and I'm going to have this kind of clients. And I didn't learn that, and so it was like 5 years that I just sort of coasted. I did it. I ran my business, but it was the same work over and over and no growth. And after 5 years, like, something's wrong. I got to fix this. And so right after that period, and I was in this transition of trying to change what I was doing and making some adjustments, I also sort of hit this moment of like getting burned out with just sort of doing what I was doing. And so the Scalin project sort of falls into this little time period that was like after running my business for a while. So started in 2001, and then I started Scalin in 2007. And basically was like, yeah, I'm just not feeling it. I'm doing my job that I love. You know, I'm making art for a living, and I'm not going anywhere. And I always had some other creative project as an outlet, and I'd started this band project actually, which is funny because this was a very early incarnation of League of Space Pirates. I'd started, and that fell apart, and so then I was really bummed out because my only other outlet was gone, and I was just like, I got nothing. And so I was walking through a park, actually Maymont Park here in Richmond, and was like, man, all of a sudden this vision came to me, and I was like, I should make a piece of skull art every single day for a year. I mean, it just came to me.
No trigger that you could think
nothing.
of?
It was just walking, and then that thought came in my head, and I was like, yeah, okay, why don't I do that? Because I got the space for it. And so what happened is that I started, like, a couple days later, I was like, all right, well, doing my regular 9 to 5, 8 hours of making graphic design for other people, I can take 20 minutes and do some skull art, and I like skulls already, and so I was like, yeah. So that started as this little goof where I was making them and putting them online, and then it just built and built and built and built, and here we are. Like, literally, Scalin 8.0 is starting in June. So for a project that's supposed to be 1 year long, it's about to enter its 8th year. Not me making them every day anymore. Now it's purely a fan-based project where people submit skulls. We share them online.
I've submitted a couple myself.
Yeah, we share them, we post, and I've got a couple friends who were fans of the site. Initially, I only knew them through being fans of the site that have become the editors and become friends of mine that run it now.
What is there's the word that you guys use to describe it starts with an S, and I pronounce it a certain way in my head. I want to know how to actually say the word.
Oh, what, simulacra?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so yeah, what happened is we get, like, mostly it's submissions of original art that people have made, and we're just happy to, like, share their creative work. There's infinite ways people can make skulls, and then when we share work, people get inspired and they make work, and then they send it to us, and so it becomes this really cool, like,
it's
loop.
Snowballing.
Yeah, it's really awesome. And so one of the things that happens though is that people sometimes find, there's another word for it. It's actually pareidolia, I believe is the correct pronunciation, which is that our human tendency to see faces in other things, or see things in other things, especially faces. And skulls, because they're basically skinless faces, are the same. So people tend to see skulls everywhere and send us these great pictures of things that look like skulls. And so what we've always done is basically it's almost always on Sunday, we'll show 1 or 2 things that people send us that look like skulls. And those are hilarious because those have been everything from, you found a LED thing that looked like, just the way
we found that right before our shoot the one day,
And then, but it's like, bird poop on windshields. I mean, it's
I think the ones I've submitted were frost on my window and a bunch of mushrooms in my backyard.
Yeah, beer a lot of times.
Yeah, so I've seen the foam ones and stuff.
It's just amazing because it turns up. They turn up a lot, like to the point where you're like, that's actually kind of
like the Bible numbers.
Yeah. Is it really just that?
Am I finding it because I mean to?
Yeah, and once people get attuned to it, they start seeing it all.
Seeing it everywhere. Yeah.
It's funny because sometimes we'll get ones that I don't even like. I'll be like, I don't see it in this picture, but I'm glad you saw it. And sometimes.
Well, as I said, do you have any sort of like voting? Nah, I don't think that's a little.
Well, with the site, because of the way it began, which was really about people's enthusiasm about the project I was doing, and people being like, check out what I did. We really made the site about enthusiasm and encouragement rather than critique. And I think there's plenty of space for people to be like, this is good art, this is bad art. You're good, you're bad. I don't want Scalin to be that. I've always wanted to be like, hey, if you're enthusiastic, good on you, and we'll encourage you too. And so the work on the site can really range from really professional, high-end, artwork that could be in galleries to a kid's drawing, from day to day. And I don't, do I think some art looks better than others? Sure, but that's personal preference, and stuff that sometimes we'll post where I'm like, that's not my favorite thing. People will go crazy for it and love it because that's their thing. And sometimes our craft posts just blow up. People love skull crafts, and so they get really crazy for that. And then something where I'm like, oh, this guy made this amazing thing so carefully, and then people are like, yeah, that's all right.
Cool. Do you generate any revenue from that, or is that just purely?
I do, but in sort of an oblique way. Like the site, because of the way I set it up, I never really wanted to get into dealing with advertising, which is really how you can make money online. But you've really got to cultivate a very specific kind of site then about, generating revenue, and then it's about putting things up that generate revenue.
Yeah.
And I just want to be like, here's sharing skull art. We do some contests that when we do that, people give us some stuff, which is fun.
Things to give away.
Yeah, which is fun.
That too, yeah.
And we clearly demark that as like we're giving stuff away, not reviewing people's things and saying this is awesome and because they gave us stuff. But the way I really derive the income is that having done the project, having exist, and having this audience has allowed me to then be a published author and also to travel and talk about creativity. And so really what I do is I do a lot of like corporate talks now about creative work. And that is, the site allowed for that. So the site generated
income. Was the site the catalyst for
Absolutely.
all that?
The project was, which is the site, came from, yeah.
So the Skull a Day started, is that where like the... I don't remember the exact name of the book, but I know like ways to be creative. 52 ways to be creative. Or something
So basically, I've done 4 books since the project came out, 3 of which are correlated with it, and I've got a 5th book, the 4th of which correlated to the project, coming out later this year.
Okay.
So it's sort of been this snowball thing.
But it all started from.
But it started from that, yeah. So the first book was a book called Skulls that actually had images from the project. It was actually put out right when the project ended and is only from the first half because I literally was working on the book as I was working on the project because it generated so much
stuff, yeah.
And then I put out a book called 365, a daily creativity journal. And that book was a way to encourage other people to do what I had done, which was be creative daily. So it showed some pictures, but it really was about here's ways that you can do this because I got a lot out of it. So I like to encourage
Now I've seen that a lot on the web before, like... Do you know whether you were one of the first to do it, or if it went back as far as 2007.
Yeah, I mean the concept of a daily project, I'm sure, has been around forever.
Yeah.
I think I kind of came at it when the tools were just becoming more easy because it was, using blogging was more popular and easy to use, and people were getting on top of it. That's before Tumblr, that's before Instagram. So I think also like it's become even easier.
Yeah.
I think I was probably one of the first people that got a lot of recognition. The other project that was really big right around the same time was the Julie and Julie became a movie about.
Oh yeah, where she was doing.
Yeah, so a lot of people credit seeing that movie, but a lot of people, did run into my site or got my book and created projects. There's also tons of tools, so I'm not going to take credit for being the founder of it, but I will say that like I know for sure lots of people started project because of what I did, which was awesome. As an artist, like you can't ask for more than like people being inspired to do their own work because of what you did.
Well, you were on. I know I've seen some of the videos like when you were on the news and stuff like that, talking about that exact thing. I guess right when it started up.
Yeah, it didn't take long. After. It took about 2 weeks
for
it to really blow up, which was crazy because I kind of was like, I kind of hoped.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. I had no idea because I really was just making skulls. At that point too, skulls weren't even that popular.
Yeah. Pirates weren't out. All that stuff.
Pirates were a little bit, but it was like it was right as I started that suddenly, like Damien Hirst put out his diamond-crusted skull, and that got a lot of press. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly it was like you started seeing skull in fashion more, and then it didn't take long before suddenly Walmart had T-shirts with skulls on them for kids.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, whoa! When I was a kid, you could not find skull stuff. That was not for kids. And
that
suddenly,
was all punk rock.
Yeah, it was. You had to really search it out, and it was dangerous, to a degree. And so it was interesting because I really made the project coming at it from like, here's what I happen to like, but I don't know if the world likes this, to being like, oh, the entire world likes this. Okay. Wow, I wish I was smart enough to like plan something like that,
Exactly. Again, it's one of those things where all the pieces just kind of came together right at that
and it was pure luck. But it was great because it did, it generated all this interest in the work I was making. It allowed me to do what I wanted to do, which was get inspired again to be creative in a way that I enjoyed and that it was continuous. Like I really, for having done it that many years ago, I'm still enjoying the fruits of that labor, and I get new ideas and base new things on it, and it continues to spur things on and grow and grow. And
so with the books and stuff, and you said you've toured, you're doing corporate events and stuff like that. Just what kind of places are you going to teach people how to harness their creativity?
Right. What's interesting is that I definitely started out talking to people in some schools, and I've talked to literally elementary school kids up through high school, college. But the interesting thing was in the last few years, I've started talking to corporate people at like Fortune 500s. So like real big corporations who are like, we need creativity, we get it, but we don't know how to do this. And let's bring in the wacky skull guy to talk to us. But it's cool because I wouldn't work for them as a designer. Like that's not a job I'd want to have. Like I would not want to help these businesses market better.
Yeah.
But I would like to help them think differently from a creative standpoint, because I think that when you do embrace these ideas, you're going to behave differently. Because artists, I think, are generally good people who do like, make great stuff in the world, but also engage with the world in a really good way.
Yeah.
I think generally. I mean, that's pretty broad.
And it's the corporate people that don't.
That generally are focused on money and not always on people and the effect of their work. And so it's been really cool to be able to come in as an artist and be myself. I don't have to come in and pretend to be like, I got to be Mr. Business and you have to respect me. Like they want me to come in as me.
Yeah.
So I can sit down in front of dozens of executives and be like, here's skulls, and look like myself and be myself. And then at the end, at the beginning, they're all definitely incredulous, like, why are you here? What are we doing? But at the end, people are like coming up like, that was awesome. I'm going to bring this back with me. I'm going to bring it to my family. I'm going to do this, whatever. Man, it's amazing.
Well, that's the thing. The art community in general is always more collaborative, and
absolutely,
it's just part of the process.
Yes.
And I don't know how people don't realize that in a corporate sense, other than the fact that most people want to, this was my thing,
yes,
and that way I get all the money for it.
Right.
And,
I get the credit, and the system is designed to encourage that, right?
It is.
When I just was talking to some business people last week, and they said exactly that like the system right now is set up to reward people for certain behavior, but that behavior undercuts their ability to be creative and innovative because they don't want to collaborate because they're afraid people are going to steal their ideas, steal the credit. And I'm having these managers say to me, if I trust the people that work for me and give them some responsibility, they're going to do better work and I'll get the credit because I'm their manager? It's like, yeah, that's how that works.
That's exactly how that works. But how do you not get that? Yeah. And that all comes from that environment. Like
the system is designed to suppress that, and it's a shame because they all go, we want to be innovative, and I go, okay, well, you want to be innovative, you got to be creative, and to be creative, you got to do what I'm talking about, and it's just counterintuitive to them. So it's a great thing. I never would have expected that this is how I'd be spending, my time these days is traveling around, going to these corporate business settings, talking about skull art.
It's funny. Like you said, you're still reaping the benefits of something you
absolutely
popped in your head when you were walking through a park.
So. Right, and that's sort of my thing is like, how often do you ignore those wacky thoughts, and why aren't you exploring
Some people are on medication to ignore those wacky thoughts.
Well, that's what I tell people. I'm always like, the same people ignore them and the artists explore them. Mm-hmm. And it's not that every wacky thought you have is going to be a genius idea. I don't think Skull-A-Day as an idea is brilliant. I think it was just an idea that I stuck with and pursued long enough and made into something, because the first few I made weren't great, they were okay, and the great stuff came way later in the process. And the other thing is, it's allowed me to continue to do, like, the art I make now. I don't have to make skulls anymore. I make them because I like them, but I do other things now, and all of those things, they're based on the things I learned in that process, and I can do other creative work now, having gone through that process.
Well, that's how you translated it into the books too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are about bigger concepts, and the art exhibitions I do now are different work, but it's all coming out of the experience. And I think of it like a marathon, like people that train and practice for a marathon, and then they do this crazy thing, and then the other side of it, you then have this understanding of what you're capable of doing, and that's going to transform the way you behave moving forward.
Well, now with the books thing, is that I'm going to jump around here a little bit too, because one of the things that I find interesting too is that I saw online that you're listed as going to NYU as well. Mm-hmm. Now, is that something you did after VCU? Because the way you described it, you went to...
So I lived at VCU as a child, but I didn't go to VCU. I actually, when I was going to go to college, I was I can't go to VCU because my parents teach there, and I've been there my entire life.
Gosh,
and I need to get out of Richmond.
So when you were saying you were in college, you were saying you
I was up at NYU.
Yeah. Because I was like, how do you do an internship for a company
in
New York?
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
that makes more sense then.
When I was graduating high school, I was like, I need to get out of Richmond. I grew up here. I spent my whole life here. Yeah. And New York, I'd been to a lot because my parents had lived there for a while. It was a comfortable place for me. So I was like, I'm definitely going to New York. And at the time, I was like, the only school I knew of in New York was NYU. So I'm like, I'm going to go to NYU. Like, I have no idea. There's plenty of other really good schools there. I was like, NYU is the only school in New York City.
Well, and that transition, the reason I jump back to that too was with the publishing of your books and stuff like that. How did that happen around here, or is that something where, because you always read about how the printed press is slowly fading and people aren't publishing things at all really anymore in smaller venues like around Richmond and stuff like that. I don't know of any publishers in
like
Richmond,
local
really.
I mean, like anything, the businesses have consolidated. I mean, it's like all the industries, like everything has gotten to being fewer places that are, and then under them are lots of sub-labels. It's funny because actually the first publisher that I worked with was actually based in North Carolina.
Oh, really?
In Asheville. They got bought up by a bigger company, and I think they've actually moved them since then. But I kind of liked them specifically because they were a little company that I thought would get that, thing. Yeah. But the publishing thing was interesting because, you don't have to be where they are. I mean, it was just what had happened as a publishing agent found my work online and said, I really like the Scalin project. Do you think you'd be interested in making a book out of it? And I think the week before posted on the website, I think this could be a book. I don't know how to make one. Somebody have any advice? So it was like, and then so then her next email was like, I just see that you posted about that. I guess you want to do. So it was like, kismet, so she really held me through the process and is an amazing friend to this day who has helped me understand how the publishing world works and how to get books out. As much as people are like, the printed page is dead.
Well, I'm not saying it's dead, but it's definitely
changed a lot.
Yeah,
and I think how people consume books are different. The books I've been making are mostly ones that do well in print in terms of like the journal format, makes sense if people don't write
something
it.
Like what you have done works better tangibly too, because the art you're doing is tangible 99% of the time, so somebody can carry that with them and go,
and look at it, and if it's a novel, I can see where you're like, I just want to flip pages on a reader, I don't care where it is, but an art book, there's something to be said for holding it, looking like this rather than zooming in on the screen and being like, now it's pixels, I don't know what I'm seeing. So that's been good, and I like having the tangible object myself.
They must be doing pretty good too if they've asked you to do more. Or did they ask you to do more? Was it more of a push for, I've got this idea.
After the first one, then I had an idea about the second one. We found a different publisher that published the kind of books that made sense. But the journal
What's the second book? Is that...
So 365, the Daily Creative
That was the second book?
Creative Journal. Yeah, that's the second
so the first book was the Skulls. Okay.
So the second was Creativity Journal, and then they asked for the next one, that became Unstuck, which is what you were thinking of, 52 projects. So that one was like, okay, you can do it for a year, but what if you don't have a year? And so then we made another journal. It's about like if you've got literally from 20 seconds to hours in your day, what do you have? I've got a project for you. And it was like sort of art school in a book in a way. And so it was really fun way to have another way for people to interact. And it's cool because both 365 and Unstuck have been published in several different countries around the world. So sometimes I get emails from like, I found your book in Sweden. And I'm like, that's so cool. Or China. I literally get these emails sometimes from China that I can barely decipher because I don't know Chinese and they know very little English. And they're trying to express to me that they found this book and are doing creative projects because of it. And it's amazing. And I'm like, they're like, what resources can we have? And I'm like, I don't even know what you can get to online because I know about the censorship. And literally, my website is censored there because it's on Blogger, Blogspot. So like that, you just can't see it there. And it's amazing, what a book can still do, that it can reach that person who couldn't find my stuff.
Which is, because, short of... book burning, there's not a lot of censorship that they can do with that stuff.
Which could happen.
When stuff is snuck in, because you stick that under your bed, that's one thing. But if they can filter what's coming in onto your computer, that's a whole other level of control.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's crazy that you could get in that kind of response.
Well, it's funny because when I went to the Middle East to do a talk, they were like, is there anything offensive in your book based on a Muslim tradition? And I'm like, man, I don't know, because I've never thought about it that way. So they're like, are there pictures of pigs in your book? I'm like, I don't remember, but I don't think so. There's no naked ladies, there's no pig pictures, and then I think, was there anything else? I think that was their main concerns.
Wow.
And then they were saying, can you not wear your earrings? And I was like, okay. And they're like, because that's just, it'll cause problems. And it was funny because I was way more paranoid. And when I got there, everybody was totally, because I was like, look, I have visible tattoos. Yeah. I cannot cover them up. What's going to happen? And people were totally fine. And it was totally nice. And everybody was friendly and it was totally fine. But it was like, going there was like, oh my God.
I'm so
what's going to happen? I'm not prepared for this. So, yeah.
Wow. So you've traveled literally
all over.
Yeah. Just because of the books. Or
coming out of the project and in the books, both of those things have led to the opportunities that came to me.
Wow, that's crazy. I know you've got some other projects. Obviously, we're going to get to those too, because I was a part of some of them.
Yes.
But is there any? I'm going to ask the question, even though I absolutely know the answer.
Yeah.
I just want to ask it to see what your response is going to be. Is there any time in all of this that you thought, I'm not going to do this anymore? I'm going to just go do something corporate and.
It's funny because when I quit even my full-time job, well, every time I've ended something, so when I ended school, I was like, finished college, I was like, I'm never going back to school. I'm never going to go to grad school. I don't want to do another test, another piece of homework, ever again. I'm done. And when I quit my full-time jobs and started my freelance, I was like, I'm never going back to an office. I'm never going to work in this, even though it was a fairly, open-ended situation because it was creative office and it wasn't like being a cubicle.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you had horrible experiences.
Yeah, but still,
I'm here for 2 weeks and now I'm in charge.
Yeah. So, those weren't terrible, but at the same time, I was like, I don't want to have anybody else control my day again.
Yeah.
And so each time it's been like that. So, I try to remember every day that, like, I'm so lucky to do what I want to do pretty much all day long, even though I still have clients and still have some people that have say over what I'm doing and the end product. It's a lot of freedom and it's amazing.
As I say, you kind of get the choice to say, well, I don't even want to do your project.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously...
Although that has consequences. But...
Right, I still have to make money and I have to, have a family and I've got to think about what's realistic with that. But I ultimately do have the choice. It's mine to say. So, to that end, like, I would never go back. However, I remember there was a moment after Skull a Day got really popular, and it had been a few years, and I was like, do I have to do this forever? Like, I'm not just about skulls. Like, I love skulls, but, like, I've always done other stuff, and the skulls were an aberration in many ways, because I was working on all this, like, socially conscious activist work, and that was really my focus, and suddenly skulls are, like, the popular thing, and I'm trying to be like, I want to talk to you about these issues and not skulls, but...
I gotcha.
And so there was a minute where I was like, maybe I need to be like, now I'm done with that, and now I'm doing this. And then after,
that when
like...
you handed the reins over kind of thing?
Well, that mostly just because I needed to get back to work. I was like, if I'm running this site all the time, I can't get anything else done. And so it was great to have the fans of the site do that work. So I could just make something, because I need to be making again. I spent a year basically like running the site and promoting the book and doing all this stuff and not making the next project. And that really was like, oh, okay, there's a balance. You gotta make and you gotta promote and you gotta balance those two. Because if you only make and don't promote, it doesn't go anywhere. If you only promote and don't make, it stops.
Yeah.
So I had hit this point where I was like, do I let go of the skull as the thing? And then I realized very quickly that I was like, no, you know what? Like, if people want to call me the skull guy and they recognize me for that, awesome, because then I can say, hey, now let me tell you about this other thing I got going on.
Gotcha.
And so
get your foot in the door.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, why would I throw away the thing that introduces people?
They got it. For theoretically, or not theoretically, but figuratively got the ball rolling for a lot of big projects.
Yeah.
Too,
so, I mean, I just, like I said, it was like a minute where I thought about that, where I was like, do I, say, no, I'm not the skull guy anymore. Now I make whatever else. And I was like, no. Technical problems?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm just switching.
All right.
All right. Well, then with the second part of that, then I have, well, not really the second part of it. I kind of, like I said, I kind of know the answer to this.
Yeah.
But with that was a much better answer than what I was anticipating, which was no, I've never thought that. Why would you ask such a dumb question?
Right. Well, I mean, because to be fair, like I get that, impetus. But so what's your follow-up?
Well, the follow-up question is, was there? I probably should have asked this question before, but is there a book or a movie or a music album or something like that you feel completely changed the course of what you were thinking about doing, or basically changed the course of your life? Is there something that really stands out in your mind that said,
like, later in life? I mean, because I would say Star Wars for me was it, but
oh,
I was
right.
also 5 years old. I mean, so do you say it changed the course of my life? I didn't have a life at 5.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, it was part of like this is, I think, the people that didn't grow up with Star Wars in that way don't get. Like, I went to a movie theater at 5 years old. It's one of the first movies I'm seeing, and I'm like, oh my god, space battles, amazing.
It's real. I can go there.
To be fair, like, okay, so 4 years, so that saw Star Wars, and a few years later, I see Empire in the theater again, And spoiler alert, I find out, that Darth Vader is Luke's dad, and I'm like, no, he's not. Like, that's how engaged I am in this. I'm literally like,
that's not. You were screaming.
I was like,
no.
I'm like, he's lying to him.
It's not.
Like,
true.
there's no way that's real. I was invested in these movies. So by the time that one came out, I must have been, I guess, 9 years old or 10 years old or something like that. So that's the level of like how impactful it is. But that's hard to be like. It formed my early life, So if the question is like later in life, was there a piece of
I would
art?
say later in life now too, because but it's funny. I write all these questions out about I can ask these generic questions of people, but most of the people that I know or that I'm trying to get on the show here are creative people in general, because I'm basically interviewing people in the entertainment industry.
Sure, yeah.
Whether it's artistic entertainment, video, movie, music, whatever. So asking the question for someone who actually creates those things in some facet across the board is kind of like, that's what I'm saying. It's like I want to ask the question because
I think you could.
It all depends on how you interpret the question too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sometimes when I talk to college students, I'll show them some slides to sort of get them going, and so I'll show a picture from Star Wars, the original one, and then I'll show a picture of the band Kiss. Because that was also like when I was like 7, they were like the greatest thing in the world, and I was like, I'm to this day still influenced by that. Like, I love this idea that grown people can dress up in costumes and like spit blood and make fire explosions and play rock and roll,
millions of
dollars, and make a living embodying this character that like is like a fantasy. And I think more people need to be like, instead of being like, that's only on Halloween or not at all, that like you can live this version of yourself that whatever you want. You can be this fantasy spaceman thing that seems impossible, that people can say to you, oh, you got to be realistic and get a job. Like, there's Kiss. So I had that as a kid. And then the other one I always show a picture of, which is totally weird and random, is the movie The Wiz, which was also from like the late 70s and is totally random. But I loved that movie as a kid. So my childhood influences were these 3 things. And The Wiz really was like, it was creepy and weird, but it's The Wizard of Oz, which everybody knew, but then translated to like grungy New York in the 70s, and it was something about that movie just really resonated with me. And it's funny because when I read about it now, it was like considered terrible, like people panned it, but it is hugely inventive, very weird. The music is great,
which ironically, the way you described it, they're doing that with everything.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Every story is being, they use the word rebooted.
Right.
But it's taking things that people find familiar and trying to put a new spin on them or make them grittier or make them more streamlined or make them whatever. And it's one of those, it's a double-edged sword. Like, great, it's creative and everything to a point, but you're literally taking somebody else's something and trying to make money off of it. You know what I mean? Like,
right. I mean,
back then that wasn't
no, right. Concept, I would say now, sure, the point is like, hey, you already like this? Here's more of it. You like Spider-Man? Here's another Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And you're like,
I've always thought there should be there should be an unwritten rule or a written rule now that you can't reboot something that had a abysmal start. Like, you tried it and, oh crap, it didn't work. All right, let's try it again. A couple of years later, there should be like a 10-year window.
Yeah.
Just to make,
Well, what's amazing is that loop is happening so fast that you're literally having to say which version of Spider-Man, because there's already been 2 and there's another, going to be another one. That's all money.
It is.
But I think there's a tradition of being influenced by classic material and making other things. I mean, West Side Story is Romeo and Juliet, but it's its own thing, and everyone's like, wow, this is a beautiful take on this traditional story.
And there are some people who would look at it and go, that's not what that is at all.
Yeah.
But now it's more blatant, is what I'm
I think it's like a different... If it's money-driven, it's one thing.
Yeah.
If it, I think... Creatively, I love taking something and interpreting. I love sampling. I love music that takes something familiar and makes a new thing out of it. Like, love that, And I think it's hard because I'm really an advocate for the ability to do remix culture, and I think that's where we get most of our interesting things. And it's funny because, if you want to go down this path, like, Disney made most of their real big fortune off of taking classic stories that were in public domain. Cinderella, Snow White, even Bambi, all these stories were existing stories that had been successful. They made their versions of it. Yeah. They got huge, and then it was all about like, oh, don't touch our stuff. We can control. They literally have changed the way copyright works in the U.S. Yeah. I don't know, do you know about this? That
a little bit, yeah.
That they extended how long they can
copyright's
control
legal for,
because they wanted to control their characters longer, even though they benefited from the ability to access public domain material.
Exactly.
So they don't want other people to have the same ability they had to be creative. And that's where it's frustrating, where it's like, don't just copy things, don't just, slap your name on it and be like, I just made Spider-Man again, not to beat up on Spider-Man, but, whatever.
That's what's happening right now.
Right. And so why do that versus being like inspired by Spider-Man to create a new thing, to create another thing.
Yeah. I mean, and that, ironically, we went down that path, even though a lot of what you build off of is inspiring other people too, which is funny. I'm processing that in my own brain as you say it. So
I mean, I think in the end, it's about what world do you want to live in. Like, I want to live in a world full of people being themselves, but fully, living, engaging the world fully, being creative, adding new things to the world for other people to enjoy. And encouraging that in other people. That's a great place to live.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be in a world where it's all locked down and only a few people have the keys and are like, don't touch my stuff without paying for it, and don't make your own stuff out of my stuff because I control it, and just buy my stuff, just consume.
Yeah. Well, what's funny about stuff like that is, just in you mentioning that, it made me think of something that I never would have thought of until I saw it on the news one day about like the Happy Birthday song.
Oh yeah.
Like
that's huge.
When I heard that, I was like, that can't be real. That's got to be something on The Onion or something. Like the concept that these two old ladies own that song, and if it's ever put in a movie or sung, they get money for it, is mind-boggling to me. And then it expanded, like, that's why restaurants don't sing the actual Happy Birthday song.
That's why Disney's made up their own Happy Birthday song.
Yeah. Like, it's crazy.
What's weird is there's a documentary in the works right now about the fact that this may be, that copyright may not be actually still enforceable, even though they're still enforceable. Because basically they don't own it anymore. It's like some company bought it from them and then they keep enforcing it. And the problem is that they may actually be illegally enforcing it, because it turns out like the song, the melody came from another thing. And there's a lot of stuff out there about
it's like holidays.
Again,
it's pieces of other things
the point is that like
embraced.
Copyright exists for a good reason, which is to allow people to profit from their creations. Mm-hmm. But it was literally in the U.S. specifically designed to have a limit, because the point was at some point it needs to go back to the public so that you can be inspired to make stuff too and work on it. Yeah. And
which is amazingly forward thinking.
Oh, incredibly. But this is like, Thomas Jefferson, like people like that who are like, got that like the point was like to create a culture that could thrive by both being people making money and by people being inspired.
And reinventing itself as it goes too.
And so what's the shame of it is that the way it works now is all the laws have been shifted to benefit all the people who made all the money, because they've got the money to control who makes decisions in government. And so you watch the system slowly, becoming more and more and more about only the one side, which is the control and profit side, and not the creativity side.
It'll eventually collapse on itself.
It has to. It has to. And you look at it now where you've literally got like a music industry being like, if you steal songs online, we're going to, sue you for millions of dollars. And yet there's no proof that people downloading songs online has caused them to lose profits, because in fact they're more profitable than ever. They keep making money.
Music becomes more and more prevalent than
what happens is that the people that download it tend to either not already be buying music, so that it's not taking away a consumer, or they download it, like it, and buy a product, or something else happens. And
buy a ticket to the concert, buy this, buy that.
They're operating on a broken perception about how the system works, and it's all about control and all about this idea that we're going to make money by keeping you from having access, rather than saying you're always going to have access. Why don't we find new ways to develop new ideas? But that's the hard path. The easy path is just to be like,
well, that kind of
shut you down.
That's a perfect bridge into your music endeavor then, because that's kind of what Ubercorp is.
Absolutely,
in your universe that you've created.
Yeah.
How did that come to be? I mean, was that another like, I want to make a comic book, and then it expanded, or did it start with an idea to going back to the music thing that was failed and?
Well, so what happened is that I had the League of Space Pirates. I think just the term, I liked the phrase, and so I think the first thing I did was made stickers of it, and there was nothing. There was like a website. I don't remember what it was. It was just an idea. I just liked the idea of a League of Space Pirates. That sounds super like the coolest thing ever. And so I told some friends about it, and I was like, what I'd like to do is make a trailer for a movie. but I don't want to make the movie. I want to make like a fake, and this was like years ago before I think this is now kind of a thing people do.
I'm actually working on some myself.
So this was going to be a fake trailer for a movie called League of Space Pirates, and in it, random stuff would happen, and I would never have to worry about how it went together.
Or explaining it, yeah.
Yeah, so then I talked to some friends, and they were like, oh, that's awesome, and they suddenly got really excited and wrote like a whole storyline for the League of Space Pirates. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't mean for there to be a story, so now there's a storyline. And then I never got around to making the movie. I made the teaser trailer, so online it still is like coming soon, and there's like, you know, little like teaser of what the Space Pirates are going to be. And then in developing the storyline, one of the ideas that came up was, oh, the League of Space Pirates needs a secret identity so they can travel the universe fighting their enemy, Ubercorp, the evil giant corporation. So they'll be a band. That way they can play shows at different planets, and then they'll have an excuse to show up those planets to do their crimes. So the band... this is comic book logic. The band is the League of Space Pirates, of course. So they're the League of Space Pirates, and they're the actual League of Space Pirates. It's like Superman.
Very comic book logic.
Yeah, it's comic book logic. Nobody's going to assume that it's the most obvious people.
Superman doesn't wear glasses.
Right.
Clark Kent wears glasses.
Look at how different they are.
They can't possibly be the same one.
Why would you think that he's kind of a nerd and he's super strong? Like,
which they did that brilliantly in Mystery Men.
Yeah.
Where he's holding up the glasses to Captain Awesome or whatever his name was. Yeah.
So playing with that concept, but then what happened is like, okay, well, there should be a band. Well, then let's make the band for real. So that original band project was a version of it, and then the new version of it was just a continuation. So I've been like picking away at this project for now over 10 years of just starting with a name, coming with a storyline, and then it's just kept building. And it's one of those things where it's my true side project. And so it's, when I can put a little bit into it, and I kind of visualize it like this, like there's a series of pieces that I'm working on in this project. There's comic books, there's movies, there's videos, there's all this stuff, and I just put like one little pebble in each column, and over time I've just happened to put enough in some of them that they've gotten done.
Wall,
yeah, it's been pretty wild. So suddenly, I went from like, oh, I'm doing this thing to like, oh, there's a real band and we're playing real shows, and then it was like, hey, let's do a web video show, and it was like, okay, why not? Like, so, and then that's become a real show. I mean, so it's just cool because for the effort of doing a little bit here and there, it over enough time, it adds up to something that's real.
Yeah.
But it's definitely
truly a side project.
Yeah, truly a side project, but also a passion. Like, I really love the idea of like I like to play rock shows. I like to dress up in costumes and be characters from space, and it's just like absolute fun. The people that are involved now are all just get that this is a good time to like do this thing you've always wanted to do, what you meant to do, or you need an excuse to do. And it's really, this year, a lot's going to be happening because not only doing this web video regular show, the Live from Space, but we've got a full-length album about to come out. I've got people writing short stories inspired by the songs. I've got people making stencils inspired by the songs that we're going to give away online so people can, use the stencils wherever they are. And then,
oh, cool.
Even more stuff, some electronic stuff that we're working on in terms of release. So it's like all this cool stuff, and it's all just... it's like
just a little,
just building.
That seems to be your modus operandi.
Yes.
Is some little idea continues to grow into something big, and
exactly.
Well, others take it over, and others run with it.
It's a great lesson to learn that you don't have to make the finished product at the beginning. You don't have to be like, well, I don't have $1 million, so I can't make a movie. It's like, how about you just make whatever you can make, and then you keep putting it out there until somebody goes, hey, that's cool.
Hey, you want $1 million to finish making your thing?
Yeah, please. Yeah. Anybody out there wants to give me $1 million? Yeah, so it's really one of those things where it's like, you find the other people see your enthusiasm and get on board, and then it builds, and you just have to keep doing it. I mean, that seems to be the trick with anything. It's like you just keep at it long enough. I think people want the success to come really fast, and then when it doesn't, they're like, well, I didn't get to whatever, and you're like, you didn't do it long enough. Like, it takes sometimes years, but
Yeah, and that's the lesson that all actors and musicians and everybody's like, we woke up every morning and this is what we wanted to do, and eventually it turned into something.
Yes.
Not, I woke up and someone said, here, you're a movie star.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
No, anytime you've seen something that just appeared out of nowhere that's suddenly a famous actor or a musician.
There was years of them.
Them as kids going to whatever, playing in malls or something. I mean, years of bad TV commercials, and that's why that stuff gets dredged up, because they were working at their craft and they were making an effort, and they had a goal in mind that they worked towards.
Yeah. Well, I think we've covered all of the big creative fun things you've been doing. So I'm going to ask you a question that I prefaced everything with beforehand.
Now the sex podcast
Now
begins.
comes to the sex one. Now take your clothes off and let's get started. No.
Oh my God. Why did I agree to this?
I need an adult.
Is this a casting couch?
Which is ironic that somebody's made that correlation. That's a joke, yeah.
Uh-oh.
but through all of your travels, all of your artistic things, you even mentioned nude drawings and stuff like that too. That kind of made me go, well, do you have any stories about that? I was like, I'll wait and ask the question later. The new tagline that I'm toying with is, get on the couch and tell me something dirty. So do you have a favorite dirty story from traveling or from performing or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to think about something that was specifically what we talked about, and trauma came up, and I think that's a funny one because, if you know their movies, there's always some nudity. Yeah. I mean, there's sex appeal with it. They're not pornographic. It's always about sex sells, so there's some boobs. Yeah. And so as the marketing person and art director, I need to help promote the movies that they were getting. And these movies were like Teenage Cat Girls and Heat. I mean, which, by the way, is a great movie and worth seeing, not just for the boobs. Trust me on it. It was a low-budget feature, but it's a great film. But yeah, so I'm literally marketing movies like that. And so periodically, there would just be no good art because it would be like some kids who made it on Super 8 or something and give it to Troma to license. They make films, but they also market a lot of them. They have a huge library. So these films would come in. Oh, yeah, absolutely. They're out in Long Island City now. But they're still around making movies. The last one was Poultrygeist, which you can watch, I think, on YouTube for free now. A lot of their movies are on YouTube, so it's really soon. They're not quite as well known in the way that they were because video stores allowed them to be the weird. Whereas now, anybody can make a weird thing and put it online in 2 minutes. But they're still the kings of the very specific genre of low budget movie making. But so I would be making these films, and there wouldn't be the materials that you needed to promote it. So we'd have to shoot photos for the cover of at that point the video box instead of the DVD case, but it would be the video box and the sales sheet, whatever. So they had one photographer they liked to work with, and so I got to meet this wonderful woman named Barbara Nitke, and her job used to be to photograph porn sets for porn films, like old ones when they were movies. Yeah. And she would be on the set shooting photos of these people. And she does exhibitions. They're absolutely gorgeous. The behind the scene photos. Mm-hmm. But she was shooting the video box ones. So she kind of continued as an artist, but then would still have this connection to this world. So she was doing Troma stuff. So I would go to her apartment, and I'd have to call up these women who had no involvement in the film, who were just models. And I'd be we need to shoot the cover of Naughty Nurses or whatever it was. I can't remember. There was a nurse one. What was
the cat one you just said?
It's Teenage Cat Girls and Heat. So that was one of the ones she shot. So it was a whole bunch of these just goofy movies. And so we would get these girls, we'd call them up and be like, can you come and be a model? And it would be, what was the one? There was a parody of Naked Gun. It was called I'll think of it later, but that was one of the ones. Blondes Have More Guns was one of them. So Blondes Have More Fun. They're just totally ridiculous. The titles are just ridiculous. So we'd bring these models in, and they'd always have to be topless. Usually covered, but sometimes they would. I can't. It's you'd have to get a range of stuff, but it would be the sexy cover photo. Where she boobs are kind of exposed and she's holding whatever, and I was probably more embarrassed than these women were, who were totally professional about being naked. And I'd always be like, "Close the set! No one look at them while they're naked. We gotta put blood on them now." And I was super professional. And people would be so jealous. They were like, "You got to do nude photo shoots for Troma," and I'd be like, "I probably appreciated it the least because I was so concerned about everyone being comfortable, no one feeling exploited, that this was a professional shoot, that there weren't gawkers, So I had, I was job mode, and I would get home later and be like, oh man, this is my childhood dream.
That's what's funny. I get that a lot too. From people doing photography and stuff.
I was around. People
are this must be awesome. Can I come hold lights and do? Yeah. I'm like, you would think that it's so much more. The art of making something sexy is not sexy. It's not as much fun as you would think during the creation of it.
Because you're trying to, it's a job, you're trying to get it done. There's lighting, there's heat. Exactly. It's just, you're doing what you have to do. Yep. And so, later you can look at a picture and be like, damn, I was looking at that. But at the time, no idea. It was so funny because I literally was later people would be like, you were at that photo shoot, you saw this girl? I'm like, kinda. I was like,
I don't even remember.
Yeah, so it was this, the best time where I was I had this job where I was totally had access to sexy ladies. And I was just like, oh yeah, it's just a job. Yeah.
I forgot to look.
Yeah, if only I paid attention and not been running around.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, that's about as dirty as I think that sort of thing would get too, because
oh yeah, there's no sex. There's no making
out
with the girls behind the scenes or something.
Yeah, when I'm drinking afterwards.
Yeah.
No.
It was funny because I remember the girls would show, and they would always be like wearing like fur and be like so much perfume on. These were like a very specific kind of girl, and I was always like they were very nice to me, and I always appreciated it. I was like 22, being like hee hee, but it was like boots, they were very nice, and I was nice to them, and it was all very nice. So it was like my dirty story isn't very dirty, but it was.
But it was still funny though. I think
it was the reality of of that experience, like the vision of who because there's I think there's only I'm trying to think there's like one photographer who gets in dirty with them and does whatever, and it's like he's just a jerk and seems like he doesn't.
There's a lot more of those now.
Oh, are there
nowadays?
It's just I mean sure there's all the porn stuff, but it's like for legitimate getting work done where nudity is involved. People are professional, and it's just not.
It's a job like anything else.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's the consumers that make it a mess. A lot of times.
It's the consumers.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. This has been good.
Yeah, man. Thanks. I had fun.
Yeah, I just trying to expand on everything and do
the
stuff.
Couch is comfy.
Got
room for.
Yeah, exactly. So I can put an entire band on there at some point.
At some point,
if we start delving into a fantasy realm of getting on the couch, maybe the entire league will come sit on the couch.
Sure. Yeah. There we go.
It'll just be completely made up the entire time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.